The worst map in Ark. Some say it's Genesis 1, some say it's Genesis 2, others would proclaim Scorched Earth or even Extinction. However, I postulate another contender, the Center.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
Now before people come for my head, just let me say that I haven't played either of the Genesis DLCs, so they very might be the worst. However, in my experience, the Center is the most bland, uninteresting, and ill-compelling map to play. Or is it really? That's the question I'll be answering today as I play 100 Days on Ark the Center. Grab your popcorn, your dictionary, your drinks, and your oddly convenient dodo plushies, and let's get started. Day 1. Certifiably the best day in Ark. For real this time. So as one does, I went and punched trees, and more trees, and harvested bush, and made some cloth. Yeah, this beginning stuff is kinda boring, not gonna lie, so let's speed this up. By the afternoon, I had managed to get some hide gear and a bow, where I then went about crafting some campfires and collecting some meat to feed myself. Delicious unseasoned meat. And oh boy, some raptors came to get some meat too, so I went ahead and bonked them and then enslaved them, cause that's cool, kids. Then after having put together a raptor posse, I went about actually making a somewhat stable camp near nightfall, including a bed and a mortar. In day 2, I ended up finding a really good level Terra, so with a bola and a bonk stick, I bonked it mercilessly until it became my comrade. But while taming it, I had noticed that a Carno had been stepping on my turf, so like a good Ark player, I shit-talked it to death.
Bro, I'm a gladiator. Can't do shit. I've killed the fucking overseer, you pansy-ass motherfucker. Parry this, casual. Come on, you bitch. Get ran. Get your shit ran. Get fucked. Get absolutely fucking annihilated, bitch.
I knew I would need some kind of pack animal in order to get narco berries for drugs, so I went ahead and bonked a para and made it submissive. Using it to collect drug berries, I managed to collect the materials needed to be able to craft 116 narcotics for arrows. I also managed to craft a saddle for the Terra, which was nice. And while waiting for my drug supply to be delivered, I ended up deciding to explore the island that I was on, where I ended up finding metal, which was metal. With the metal I had acquired, I needed some forges to cook it up, so I crafted some and then began smelting the metal. No shit. And of course, enough time had passed where my drugs had finished, so I made them into chemical weapons.
Alright, buddy, shit just went from 0 to 100 real fucking quick.
In day 3, I decided with my newly saddled bird, I would go out and explore, which Ark didn't like that. So it shot me back to the beginning of day 2 with a crash, before even the Terra had tamed.
Okay, Ark. I see how it is.
Okay, alright, I see how it is. So we're back on this fuck shit, bitch!
Not letting it get the best of me, I picked up where it had dropped me off in time, eventually grinding my way back to where I had left off by the beginning of day 3.2. I had also managed to get a smithy and a spyglass, so I was actually ahead of where I was before. But as a result from the crash earlier, that Carno that I had shit-talked to death tried to assault me and my crew. However, my gang made quick work of it. And with a bunch of metal at my disposal, I decided to drip myself out in some flak and arm myself like the American I am with some metal tools. Actually, wait, that's a British thing, no! Primed and ready for exploration, I said farewell to base camp, to the Raptor posse and the Parasaur, and took to the skies in search of a permanent base spot.
Oh, look, a base spot!
So yeah, that search was short-lived, as rather quickly I found a base spot within a ruin. It even had an indoor pool! And not only was it enormous, it was also connected to the nearby river, which made it a perfect water pen. And it had the artifact of the immune in it.
Day 3. Artifact of the immune. Just in my pocket.
So after getting a good look around the place, I began building. Build montage, baby! Woo! in the middle of day 4, I ended up needing to go and get more stone. However, I had exhausted my nearby supply, so I needed to go out looking for more, and I got distracted. Like a lot. So for the rest of that day, I ran around, taming a pair that I had found, and returned home in the evening, where I continued building and furnishing going into day 5. And it was at the end of day 5 where I ended up finding a level 156 Tech Rex, so I immediately went about taming it.
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep.
Yo, let's go.
And once it tamed, I decided to have it wreck nearby stuff to attain levels, having it fight an Alpha Carno that I had spotted while I was taming the Rex, which the fight was a pretty close one, leaving my Rex on low health, but also giving it 33 levels, which was amazing. And chat later decided to have me name it Erection. Ha, 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 ha. I spent the rest of day 6, did I not mention that it was day 6, doing random stuff, including finishing my flax set, smelting some metal, and crafting some spark powder. I was exploring in day 7, where I had found a decent cache of metal in the back of the island that I was living on, and just after that, I also found a really good level Therizino, which I decided to trap tame. However, it had a friend, so I decided to make a friend myself to handle it.
You fucking bloody bastard bitch!
Eventually, I managed to tame the Theory I wanted, and I decided to name it Littlefinger. You know, like the Peter Baelish boy from
The Dragon Show.
Now they're confused.
And on my return journey in the beginning of day 8, I found a high-level Doed, which I tamed as well. Wow! Then taking them all back home. Tiger Woods died. Getting home, I deposited the metal I had collected into the forges, taking some of the cooked ingots out to craft myself some more gear, including a saddle for my erection. Oh, this is never gonna get old. But rather than play around with a new Rex like a pleb, I decided to be a responsible boy and go out on another metal run, collecting a bunch of it, parachuting home, and throwing it into the forges. Then on day 9, in an effort to get myself cryopods, I ventured north to the snow biome of the center, to go get some polymer from the penguins. Then, using the nearby obelisk, I crafted the Dollar Store Pokeballs. And now, with the balls of cryo, I felt confident undertaking a proper taming run, now having the security of a Pocket Rex and the extra storage for tames. Going out, my main goal was to try and get a kangaroo for berry harvesting, since it was amazing on the island. I was also out on the look for a male Terra, as it would allow me to breed PTs. Though in day 10, I found neither of those, and rather found a really good Anki in the Snow Mountains. However, while getting the trap ready for it, a dire wolf ended up killing my Terra, leaving me pretty much stranded. But despite that, I tamed a Pangy! I wanted it! And then proceeded to knock out and tame the Anki, which I named Bull, and then jumped off the cliff to parachute home.
Would love to cut the cord about now.
Returning home, I made a couple feeding troughs before picking up my backup Terra, which fortune found me soon after, as I found another high-level female Terra, which I tamed. I was on the floating island in day 11, where I was looking for a Rue and now an RG, which I found a level 145 RG near the top of the island, which I trapped and tamed. Which fate seemed to smile upon me that day, as I also found a max level Rue, which I trapped and tamed. Boom. Returning home in the beginning of day 12, I began consolidating my materials around base, using said materials to craft the saddles for my new tames. And with the new saddles, I decided to try and use the Rue, which did not work as good as last time. See, the Rue was really good on the island because there was a bunch of bushes clustered together. However, the center didn't really have any of that, so the process of collecting berries would be tedious until I could tame a Bronto. But alas, I did as what Tyrion had once said.
We'll make do.
Now they're confused.
By day 13, I had amassed a fine cache of narcoberries. However, in my travels, I found an interesting cave which I decided to run with my erection. My Rex named erection.
Dick on.
Beginning the run of the cave, I found that it was not pleasant, as it was overflowing with creatures to the point where I was lucky to get even 20 frames per second. Ah yes, the magic of shitty Xbox One technology. To make it look pleasant, I will speed up the footage, and while I was in there, I ended up taming a Megalania. Somehow. I also discovered that this hellhole of a cave was connected to my base. Luckily enough, my base was just out of render distance enough to where it didn't actually cause it to lag, so that was good. It also meant that this cave was really the cave of the immune. Thus, the immune cave strikes again with laggy bullshit. Returning home at the end of the day, I began crafting as much narcotic as I could, with around 5,000 berries and 500 spoiled meat at my disposal. Wherein day 14, I went around base naming all of my creatures, naming the Doed, Bullet, the Megalania, Saulette as a tribute to our fallen comrade, naming the Rue, a normal day in Aussie, and naming the RG, Alloy. Now with the dinos named, I went on a massive metal run with Alloy and Bolt. I then returned home in early day 15, leaving the metal aside for the moment being to go and get cementing paste from the nearby beaver dams. Which after that, I then decided to not put the metal into the forges and instead go out and have some fun exploring. And whilst doing so, I ended up finding one of the entrances to the underworld. But I didn't know that it was a one-way trip.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I ended up having to tame a pteranodon to get out. On day 16, I was flying around Lava Island looking for loot drops, where I ended up finding a level 120 Tech Rex, which of course I went about taming.
Go off!
Where then, shortly after taming it, I found a level 55 Karcha, which, not learning my lesson from the island, I decided to try and tame it.
It's an Alpha Carno body. I know it's based on drag weight, but like, it's an Alpha Carno body. It's gotta do something. Come on, sniff it.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Oh, shit.
God.
After the obvious result of my stupid decision, I returned to my corpse. Though I wasn't so stupid as to have left my gear on my body, rather putting my stuff away on my Terra before I tried to tame the Karcha. However, I was still determined for some demented reason to get the Karcha, so I put together a small fob and tried to continue to tame it in day 17. Though this time I was a fair bit more cautious, keeping my distance and only approaching when I thought it was safe. However, I didn't find any openings to feed it for a long time, but when I did get one, the thing ignored the damn corpse.
Yo, there you are. You see it?
Huh? Huh? Huh?
Bro. Oh,
Come here, boy!
no. Nope, not faster.
And killed me.
God damn it.
So after gathering my things for the second time, I decided to just give up as it wasn't worth the time or the brain cell I'd lose if I continued. In day 18, I needed some space for some fabricators to get to the next stage in Ark, so I went about expanding the base, building into day 20. So here's another build montage for you.
Psych!
I will slap you, man. I will slap the hell out of you. You don't play with me. You don't know who you're messing with.
Damn!
When I had finished, I was quick to continue my crafting endeavors by starting to get together the materials for an industrial forge, gathering some pearls and oil from the river, and then some cementing paste from the beaver dams. And whilst going around, I ended up finding that male pteranodon that I needed. On day 21, I ended up taking a break from preparing for the Indie Forge to go and collect some drops, which prompted the idea to try and look for some in the giant lava cave on the volcanic island, where unfortunately I didn't end up finding any loot, but I did acquire the artifacts of the Massive and the Strong, which was pretty cool.
That's cool.
After leaving the cave, my lack of loot finally paid off, as in one of the drops that I found had an apprentice longneck in it, which would be extremely useful for future taming endeavors. Then, shortly before the end of the day, I ended up getting another loot drop with an Ascendant Sickle and Doed saddle, which was also cool.
That's really interesting.
Then, in day 22, while I was looking around for stuff, I ended up finding and taming a high-level female Tech Rex. From there, nothing really happened, so I decided to go and run the immune cave for chitin with my tech Rex.
Make a dick joke.
And as you've already seen the slag fest before, skip. Returning back home in day 24, I had spent an entire day in there with the horde of chitin and hide. And with the chitin, I wanted to use it for cementing paste. But before I did that, I went out with Bullet and Alloy to go on a massive obsidian run on Skull Island. However, I made a staggering discovery. Now on the island, as we saw last time, the Doed was immaculate at harvesting obsidian. But here on the center, the Doed could only get stone from the obsidian nodes, which is tragic. Someone should tag Phoenix Mac and tell him that he was half right. So in day 25, I went back and collected Bull, returning to Skull Island to now get a bunch of obsidian. Returning home with a large stockpile in the end of the day, I went about finally crafting cementing paste from the chitin I had gathered, going into day 26, where I then used the cementing paste that I had gathered from the beaver dams and used it to start crafting a bunch of polymer. Which, while that was crafting, I decided to go out and try a strategy with the root. I knew I'd need a bunch of charcoal for gunpowder eventually, so I figured that I could go with the speedy and good carry weight mount, the root, to go and get charcoal from the trees up at the volcanic biome. Which is what I did. Which that was a resounding success, returning with a large stash of it in day 27. I then took all of the polymer that I'd crafted while I was away and used it to finally craft an industrial forge.
Fuck yeah!
I also crafted an industrial cooker, a chem bench, and the necessary equipment to power all of it. Though before I went around placing everything, I took care to replace the electronics that I had used. Which with these new industrial appliances at my disposal, I went to work on day 28. Starting with the chem bench, I started by getting the materials necessary to craft a bunch of spark powder. After finishing collecting in day 29, I then, collected the cementing paste that I'd begun crafting earlier and used that to craft a second chem bench to allow me to multitask, which I quickly put to use by crafting a bunch of drugs.
Yes, sir!
Thereafter, with a bunch of spark powder crafted, I forgot to mention that I had started crafting that, I began making gunpowder with it, and whilst I was doing that, I decided to begin breeding for the prime breeding pair of Rexes.
Time to out.
Collecting eggs in the background whilst I was grinding at my materials. And after collecting a decent cache of gunpowder for my crafting, I used that to craft a bunch of ammunition for shotgun shells and tranq darts. I also opted to craft some vaults in order to store all these materials I was crafting, and from there, I continued crafting gunpowder going into day 30, placing the vaults in between crafting. Finishing the narcotic, I then began using my stash of chitin to begin crafting as much cementing paste as I could, and in the background, I decided that I wouldn't use the lower level female tech Rex anymore in fear of getting too many low levels, so I cried her
And ate her children.
and after some more crafting, I had gathered what I thought would be enough eggs to start working towards a prime breeding pair, so I ended the breeding for the moment. And thereafter, I collected my crafted tranks and decided to make a giga carch trap in case I encountered one of them. And finally, leaving my man cave in day 31, I decided to go out taming on the lookout for Dimetrodons, being too lazy to make a dedicated hatching area with ACs.
Salsa droll looking twat!
So beginning my search for one in the swamps, I first found a high-level capro which I tamed, and then killed. Buddy. It was a fish, dude. How the f did you, f that up? But it was a literal fish. And my capro luck only seemed to get worse, because while my controller was disconnected while I was researching for Dimetro spawns, I ended up getting jumped by some capros, which one lunged on me and threw me into the bottomless pit below the floating island. Yo, what the fuck? What?
What the fuck happened?
Making my slow way up the side of the pit, I was fully expecting my terror to be dead. However, it was quite the opposite, as the terror had somehow barely taken any damage. So after killing its aggressor, I therefore named her Champ, as she ate that like a champ, bro. Continuing my search into day 32, I ended up going to the lava island because my research ended up leading me to think that Dimetros would spawn there. Which, if any of you know the spawns on the center, you would know that that is rubbish. Which eventually I determined that as such, and came to the conclusion that the information I had gotten from Dododex was a confusion with the Spinosaurs, which were frequently spawning on and around the island. So I returned to the swamp, taming a high-level frog when I got there, but in day 33, I had finally managed to find my first Dimetro, only for it to be eaten by baryonyx while I wasn't paying attention. Fuck! In the morning, I ended up finding another frog, which I also tamed. But whilst I was looking for some beaver dams, I had finally found another Dimetro, which this time I actually tamed.
Hell fucking yes!
Leaving that godforsaken swamp with Demetrio in hand, I returned home in the late evening, throwing on my friends, which afterwards, having acquired that male Terra a few days prior, I went about trying to breed some new Terras. However, this didn't turn out to be that successful, breeding them in the morning of day 34 and raising them for the rest of that day to amount to nothing. On day 35, I had continued on my work for more resources, crafting even more gunpowder and then some more polymer to help me craft some cryo-fridges for my stash of cryopods. But before I went and did that, I went out with Alloy and Bull for yet another metal run. Finishing the run in the morning of day 36, I went home with my supply of metal and put it away into the Indie Forge, having collected 18,000 ingots worth of raw metal. Then with that done, I decided to go ahead and craft those cryo fridges.
Hot diggity dog!
Now finally being content to some degree with the amount of resources I had accumulated, I then began the work of actually preparing for the boss fight, starting out with the need for the artifacts. But before I could go and get them, I would need a proper caving mount, which I decided I wanted a Thyla since I didn't tame any on the island. So going to the Redwoods, I began searching. Yet, even into the middle of day 37, I still hadn't found one. Though I did find a good level Megatherium, which would be helpful for harvesting chitin, because of course I need more of that cementing paste goodness. And it was after taming the Megatherium where my patience was finally rewarded, as Ark blessed me with a max level Thyla. After making the Putty Tap mine in the beginning of day 38, I decided to name it Meerkat and bring it home, though rather than use it, I decided to instead go out on the Megatherium and run the Immune Cave for some tasty bug skin. So after laggily collecting a bunch of chitin and getting distracted by some sleepy boys that decided they were no longer sleepy... Oh, it's night. Oh, it's night. Oh, it's night. I brought back all the chitin in day 39, which with this vast stash of bugskin, I went to work crafting a bunch more cementing paste. And when I ran out of stone, I made some drugs. Oh, and went out on the dough for more stone. I could make a joke about getting stoned, but that's pretty low for me. I guess that would make me high then. And finishing getting stoned at the beginning of day 40, I went about using the collection of stone to make more cementing paste. But all this crafting got boring, so I decided to finally try the Thyla, going around the nearby archipelago to level them up. And once it was leveled up, I thus began the task of collecting the rest of the artifacts, pursuing the Cave of the Devious first on the floating island. So in day 41, I ended up finding one of the entrances to the cave from underneath the island, since I couldn't find the land entrance, and collected the artifact of the Devious promptly. Next on the list was the Cave of the Clever and the Devourer, which was a snow cave in the eastern snowy mountaintops. And so with Meerkat, I ran through the cave, having to swim through some water pockets and teaching a beach bob what's up. I ended up acquiring both the Devourer and the Clever in no time. 20 minutes. Next on the list was the Silica Cave on the volcanic island, which I arrived at on day 42, where I quickly went through the cave and acquired the artifact of the Hunter. Then was the Cave of the Cunning, which wasn't really a cave. But before I got there, I ended up finding a perfect mate for Bull, which I couldn't help but tame. Which from there, I went about collecting the artifact, finding that this cave was really just a massive icy ruin which guarded the artifact. So with that lackluster endeavor, I went ahead and got stuck in another lackluster endeavor, running the Cave of the Skylord in day 43. Now with most of the artifacts, I then put my head to the direction of a water dino to go and get one of the last artifacts I needed, which was the Cunning, and the necessary tributes in the water as well. In the end, I eventually wanted to get a Mosa, something that a rinky-dinky primitive crossbow couldn't do, so I began the tedious process of killing alphas and looking for loot drops for a better one. And it was while I was killing alphas on the lava island where I found a Giga, one that was not terrible either, so with the components of a trap in my pocket, I trapped the beast and began knocking it out. It ended up taking until day 44, using up 100 trank darts in the process, but I did it, and tamed it, naming it Not Ass, for unlike the island's Giga, it was not ass. After that, I still had that crossbow situation to figure out, so I continued in my searches, killing alphas until one of them gave me a decent apprentice crossbow, which would have to do for now. And looking ahead, I realized that I would need to collect a lot of tributes, one of them being 25 Sarco scales, which on the island, getting even 10 was a task on its own. So it prompted me that I would require a specific mount to acquire all of it. A Spiny, which by the end of that day, I had trapped and knocked out a level 120, which attained in the beginning of day 45. But afterwards, yards, I was still yearning for a better crossbow, so I went around looting again, where I found a Mastercraft Thyla Saddle BP. Though, later on, I found a high-level Quetz. And if you're wondering why I don't sound happy about it, it's because this was the solemn most annoying tame I'd ever dealt with. Taking ages with my knockout strategy, the same I used for the Toppy on the island, and when I finally did manage to take it out, the spike walls that I was going to use to protect it while I was getting prime meat for it killed me. And then when I did return, I found that the Quetz had disappeared, and again, the spikes killed me. I ended up finding out when I had gotten back that the Quetz had fallen into the mesh, and feeling that I was kinda getting screwed by Ark, I used Ghost to get it and do tame, just for the game to later crash and roll back to before I even knocked it out. And being exhausted and frustrated, I just do-tamed it again and went back home, even though this tame would never be used again or mentioned or anything for the rest of this playthrough. In day 46, I decided to let Bull have some fun time with his girlfriend. I was really trying to replace him, spending most of my time today breeding, hatching, and killing babies. On day 47, I was going around with my roof for narco berries, where a normal day in Aussie proved to be a little bit too much for an alpha carno. I didn't have to show this, but I wanted to. Anyways, Bull breeding. And after that, I decided to make El Bobo proud and crafted a bunch more drugs with the narco berries that I had gotten, using said drugs to make trank darts to befriend the locals. And to continue the epidemic, which was me, I then decided to go and take Not-Ass out on a leveling limit. Day 48, and I finally realized that the Enki breeding was a complete waste of time. So instead, I went to one of the nearby obelisks and crafted a bunch of cryopods. I then finally decided to go and play in the water, taming 2 level 140 sharks like a damn Chad, using the one with better stats for my endeavors, which started with a leveling run.
I am going to commit great crime. I'm going to bust nut in water tub.
Finishing the shark slaughter in day 49, I went back to the land. However, nothing really was happening up there, so I dove back into the water in the afternoon, and in day 50, I began the treacherous descent to the artifact of the brute, an experience unlike any other I had felt in Ark.
Oh my god, I saw the shark and I thought there was like a eldritch beast staring at me. Ooh, starting to see something. I'm seeing many things. Oh. Why is there an abyss in the center? What the? I'm not playing Subnautica. Or apparently I am playing Subnautica. Holy god, look at this. Oh, this is the stuff of nightmares. I did not sign up for this. I'm at the bottom, and oh my god, I hated that. I hated that. Follow the blue lights. That's a Moza.
Oh shit.
I can't fight that. Also pretty sure I can't outrun it either.
Get your ass back here, boy.
God, it's chasing me. Oh, I think it's in here. Oh, there it is. Pretty sure it's in here.
Wrong.
That is
It's in here. Hello. That's literally it right there. Yep. Okay. I just went too deep.
When I got home in day 51, with most of the artifacts I needed, I finally decided to begin the process of hatching and raising the Rexes needed for a prime breeding pair. Which this went on for a while, having me need to go on a few meat runs to keep the children fed, and whilst I was out and about collecting a purple drop, the past few days were kind of filler, I ended up finding 2 high-level Brontos, which I decided to tame both, and to try and breed them for a very powerful and uncharacteristically speedy baby, which from them was born a beautiful red baby girl which grew up in day 54, where I named her Titanish Rouge. I also had taken the initiative to craft her a Mastercraft saddle from a blueprint that I had gotten when I was looting, and with that all set up, I took her out on a small berry run, which was far more effective than the Roo was, which, tabbing back to the breeding for a prime pair, some of the Rexes needed to grow up to build up to a prime pair, so I decided to take the Spinoat for tribute hunting in day 55, starting with sauropods, then taking an unfruitful dip in the ocean, followed by heading home to continue breeding for a prime breeding pair. How many times do you think I'm going to say prime breeding pair in this video?
just shut the fuck up!
But But in day 56, I was back out with the Spino, doing more tribute hunting where I killed more sauropods for their vertebrae, kinda weird when you say it out loud, and then going to the lava island for some fried chicken, or argytalons. And by day 57, I finally ventured to the swamp to go and collect sarcoscales, which by the afternoon I had finished with that. So I returned home and found that some of the Rexes I was waiting on to grow had grown up, so I began breeding them, which the more they bred, the more inbred they became, so that's a thought. In the beginning of day 58, I had a thirst for boa venom and megalania toxin, so with my Spino, I went on a quick little genocide in the immune cave, leaving in the morning, where when I got home, I had managed to hatch the final Rex I needed for the prime breeding pair. But first, I needed it to grow up, so I took this time to go into the redwoods for Thylaclaws, which because Thylas are pretty rare on the center, it took me until the beginning of day 60 to acquire most of them, only needing one more, but I was tired of looking. Then, I finally decided to begin the breeding of the Rex army, doing some chores to pass the time until all the needed eggs were laid, including some preparations for a Mosa trap in the beginning of day 61, and in day 62, I had finally gathered the last of the eggs for the Rex army. So thus, I went out to go tame a Mosa, as I didn't quite want to take care of the babies yet.
You lazy fucking cow.
Going into the water, I began my search, eventually finding a level 60 Mosa in the afternoon, which I decided to tame as a temporary mount.
That shit is fucking trash!
Not using the trap, by the way. And when it tamed, I then went home in day 63, where I began preparations to hatch the Rex army, making more feeding troughs, and using what was supposed to be the Mosa trap to wall off my base. And at the end of the day, I began hatching the eggs, which from there I spent day 64 raising and imprinting them all, then spending day 65 doing a meat run to keep the Rexes fed, using the hide from the run to make the Legion saddles, and then I spent days 66, 67, 68, 69, and the morning of day 70 doing nothing but leveling Rexes, which drove me so insane that I needed to take a week break from recording. But alas, I did it. And finally, doing something that wasn't leveling, I decided to go and have some fun with the Mosa I had tamed. Doing some tribute hunting, which in day 71, whilst looking for basilosaurs, I ended up getting distracted by a drop-off that looked similar to the Brute artifact drop-off. And there I found a level 145 Mosa, which of course I went about taming, and then used it to replace my low-level Mosa. Which with the new Mosa, I continued hunting for tributes, eventually collecting all the basilo blubber I needed, killing several alpha ladies, collecting a bunch of Spinosails, and 2 Tusos, one of which was an alpha. So that allowed me to check off a lot of the tributes I needed on my list. And to help finish that list, I decided to get that final Thylaclaw, swimming over to the redwoods with my Mosa, and then hunting for the final Thyla I need, which by the midday of 73, I had attained. All I needed from there were Spinosails, which I went around killing a bunch of them up until the midday of 74, where I needed only one more. And I knew where to get it too, but whilst on my way, I ended up getting distracted, finding a gorgeous black and red sleepy boy on the floating island, and I could not resist taming it. And then, in the end of the day, I collected the last Spinospine. Which from there, I then went to go and get a Eutyrannus, an exhausting search, which took up days 75 and 76, where I found one, but it committed sewer slide. Luckily, I found another one, which I tamed in the morning of day 77. So with the new Uti, I needed to level it up, so I brought it to the lava island and went on a purge, keeping an eye out for Karchas and Gigas that I could tame. Which on day 78, I had found one on the small volcanic island, but it was low level, so I had to kill it. And from there, I walked the Uti back home. Slowly. Which that took until day 79, and from there I kinda wasted some time looking for Karchas or Gigas, but in day 81, I gave up and finally decided to march the Legion to the Blue Obelisk. But when I got to the obelisk, I found that I was missing an artifact.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. And after doing some research, I found that it was in the underworld. So I went after it, arriving in day 82, where I found that it was a very annoying cave. One which was based around parkour, where you couldn't use grappling hooks or dinos, and even after making a huge fob to respawn at, I couldn't manage to get even through the first third of the parkour.
There you go.
And rather than let it stop me, I decided to just go and get the artifact. And then, in day 83, I went to go and fight the bosses, rather unceremoniously.
Let's go do this shit. We got this shit. Look at us walking down the main way. Let's go kill these things. That's one of them. That was quick. Kill the bitch. Watch her die. Wow. The most unceremonious fight ever.
So, let's get started with my conclusion of the center. Is it the worst? After this playthrough, I can confirm, kinda? Not to say that this was a bad map by any means. It was gorgeous and definitely was an improvement to the island when it came to level scaling. However, the center feels kind of unfinished. Buggy, laggy, and kinda bland and broken all at once. Not to mention that shitty cave. The center kinda is just meh. If I were to rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, I would probably have to give it around a 6. Hopefully in ASA, they give this map a much deserved glow up and maybe some TLC besides just the Shasta Sword. Now for my dedicated viewers wondering where Scorched Earth is. All I can say is, I don't know. In the months since I had made the 100 Days on the Island, beating the Overseer, and now this video, I had been recording on an Xbox One. But in the last month of editing this video, I have been able to not only get a next-gen console, but Arc Ascended and a PC for editing. Which on one hand means that the future content will be much better quality than it used to be, and in the coming months there should be definitely a lot more large-scale content. However, since ASA should have Scorched Earth in the next coming months, I don't exactly feel comfortable trying to record an ASC 100 Days, combined with the fact that I'm still figuring out how to maximize my time and space when it comes to recording. So for the moment, 100 Days, Scorched Earth, and in fact any 100 Days, will probably be put on the back burner until I can figure all that out. However, I am proud to say that I will be working on an Arc Ascended playthrough, which will be worked on and released hopefully in the next coming weeks to months. Hopefully. So you can all stay tuned for that. But with all that said, I don't want to continue ringing your ears with my yapping, so I'll just leave you guys with one final question. What do you want to see me do next?